there's the odd house, and we can cut it. So.
Do I want to continue without audio yet? Because audio is here.
Right.
Is Lauren at Document? And we have here's some slides you can see.
Yeah. I will share my screen.
Yeah. See, but now Genevieve and Florence are.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Brett.
Hi.
This is Mrs. Morris. Hello.
Good afternoon. Hello.
People are starting to join.
Just in time. Just got my finished lunch. Had time to grab coffee and get online. Oops. There's an echo, but hopefully that has gone away. Good. So Ben is on the call. Will he be on video later as well?
I'm on video a second ago. You must have just-
Hey Ben.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay.
Hello.
Perfect. Great.
Do you want me to stay on video, or should I turn it off while I'm not talking?
I think it's fun to stay on video if you don't mind. It's up to you.
No, that's fine.
Not required,
Okay.
but certainly enjoyable to have multiple people up on screen at the same time.
Okay.
A little more connected and a little more full of life, I think. Great.
Sounds good.
Good. Well, it's 12:30, so I think we'll get started. Thank you to those who have joined us online. So let's see if I'm able to advance the slides. Oh, everyone's getting a quick preview. There we go. So welcome everyone that's joining us online for our first ever town hall meeting direct from AIA California Council leaders out to the membership. Definitely appreciate everyone joining us on this Zoom platform today. We have some assistants behind the scenes that will most likely be keeping people's microphones muted when you're not speaking, just to assist in being able to hear those that are speaking and to eliminate some background noise that might inadvertently come up. If you need to raise your hand or if you have a question for the group, there should be a black bar on the bottom of your screen, which would allow you to type in a question to the Q&A portion of the meeting and get your voice heard that way. So thank you so much for joining. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Britt Lindberg. I'm an architect at Gensler in their San Jose office, a senior associate here. I've been working with them for about 7 years. And before that, I was an architect working in small firms in Palo Alto doing single family and multifamily residential. So I have a broad background across different types of firms, and certainly honored to be your 2018 AIA California Council President this year. And very thankful again to you all for joining us. Also joining on the call today, speaking will be Nikki Dennis Stevens, who is our 2018 Executive Vice President at the AIA California Council. So we'll be hearing from her a little bit later in the conversation today. And of course, we'll also be hearing from our 2019 AIA California Council President, Ben Kasdan. He's the first Vice President this year. He's an architect at KTGY in Orange County, and he'll be joining us and speaking a little more about overviewing a lot of the programs that the California Council is working on this year and then moving into next year as well. Great. Let's see if I can, there seems to be a little bit of a delay in advancing the slides, so just bear with me. There we go. Great. So as the president of the California Council this year, there is a top 10 list that maybe some people have seen. It was posted online at the beginning of the year on the AIA California Council website. And it includes a lot of key issues that tie to the main vision and purpose of the AIA California Council. And this top 10 list was distributed or distilled from a lot of feedback from members and the board and the executive committee discussions last year as sort of top issues facing architects practicing in California. And so a lot of what we'll talk about today relates back to efforts related to those top 10 issues and additional issues, and then the main vision and purpose of the council. which the slide disappeared, but we'll try to get back to it. Apologize. Here we go. So this is the main vision and purpose that oversees all that the California Council does. It fosters a collaborative community to enable architects to lead, apply our unique talents to design and create the most livable, sustainable communities and best buildings of the future. And the mission, in collaboration with local components, we are the voice of the profession in California. And so a little bit about the structure of the AIA for those that may not be aware. There are 3 different levels of the AIA as an organization representing architects around the country and actually around the world. So the national AIA organization has about, I think it's something like 80,000 or so members that it represents, mainly in the United States, but also internationally in terms of practicing architects working in our field. And so that's the national level. Their focus is a lot on knowledge community, national conference, sort of the national collective knowledge sharing for the profession, and then national legislative and advocacy issues that come up in Congress that affect us as a nation. And so then underneath the national structure is a bunch of different states and regions around the country. And so AIA in California is a state component, and it's also a region, which is not always the case, but California being blessed with our grand size and impact, we are both a state and a region that encapsulates 22 local chapters distributed throughout the state. We'll share a map of those chapters very briefly right after this slide, just so you can see where those are geographically. But the state level AIA focuses a lot on the state level legislative and regulatory issues coming out of Sacramento, and also sort of a knowledge sharing resource amongst the 22 chapters within California. And we'll hear more about the focus of a lot of those programs from Nikki and Ben later in the call. And so at the state level, the California Council brings board members from each chapter around the state together on the California Council board, where we have about 60 members on the board. We meet in person 3 times a year, and then we meet virtually, either on a GoToMeeting or perhaps in a Zoom meeting, about bi-monthly in terms of sharing issues that are affecting practice locally in the chapters throughout the state, and then thinking about how the California Council as a state level organization can help chapters overcome some of those issues. And then within the board of directors, there's an executive committee. We'll see a few more of their faces in a slide in just a little bit. There's been some reorganization in the structure of those executive committee last year that we're enacting this year, which is very exciting, and we'll highlight that as well. You'll see on this slide a mention of California Architectural Foundation. That's sort of the foundational nonprofit arm at the state level. Not a very active group right now, but we are looking at ways to re-energize the Architectural Foundation this year. They do have a lot of scholarships that are awarded through that foundation, which is a key component to supporting emerging professionals on their path to licensure, and we're looking to reinvigorate CAF with additional support and linkages between the profession and education in California as we move through the year and into the future. Great, so here's the map of the 22 chapters around the state, kind of shown to be organized somewhat loosely into a Northern California and Southern California geography. And the chapters really range in size significantly. There can be chapters perhaps with under 100 members, and there can be chapters perhaps with over 1,000 members. So there's a big diversity across the state, which contributes to a lot of welcome and differing viewpoints that feed into all of the issues that the California Council addresses when we talk about practice throughout the state. So some of these chapters, generally the larger ones, will have administrative and executive support on staff, full-time or part-time. And then some of the smaller chapters don't have the ability to have dedicated support staff for those chapters, and so relies on the volunteer leadership to be in communication with other chapters around the state and make sure that all of the core services are being provided to all members equally throughout the state. And so this is a slide that just shows you the friendly faces of your 2018 Executive Committee. So President, First Vice President, Secretary, Treasurer, VP Communications, all the different sort of portfolios that each Vice President oversees within the organization of the Council. The Council has over 200 programs within its purview and a budget of about $2.5 million per year. About 70% of that is funded by member dues and 30% of that is funded by other non-dues revenue sources such as sponsorship and fundraising and all of those things. And so the board and the executive committee have a financial responsibility to oversee the organization in a thoughtful and correct way in terms of the laws of the state. And so that's part of what we discuss many times at board meetings, but also we spend a lot of time talking about how can we improve the profession throughout California through different programs that we're running. And so we'll hear more about the different portfolios of the vice presidents and some of the programs that they're working on later in the call today. But we wanted to share everyone's faces so you could have a sense of who to reach out to if you have a question on government or regulatory affairs. For example, you could reach out to Mary Fullenwider if you have a question about communications and see relevance come in every week in your email box or see other things come out on social media. You could reach out to Wyatt Frentum. And so do get familiar with these people. And if you see them at an event or want to reach out to them online, please don't be shy. And similarly, we also have on screen the members of the board of directors from the different chapters around the state. And so each chapter gets a different number of directors on the board currently, depending on the size number of members within that chapter. And so again, don't be shy reaching out to your local representatives on the state board. They want to hear your opinions and want to also let you know what's happening at the council and how to be informed and involved. In the upper left corner, you'll see 3 of our national representatives from California to the National Strategic Council. Rick Abramson, Phil Bona, and Jana Itzen. They are your contacts to issues happening at the national level and excellent resources for any questions that you might have in relation to national AIA workings as well. Great. So moving along as well, we also are supported by an excellent staff. Extremely fortunate at the California Council to have this dedicated staff that supports us behind the scenes and helps make everything happen for us. Without them, we would not be nearly as successful as we are. And so Nikki Dennis Stevens, Executive Vice President, we'll hear from her in just a couple more minutes. Mark Christian in Government Relations, you'll see his name a lot in relation to bills that are being discussed at the state level, advocacy and legislative efforts, and he will reach out sometimes with emails and an update of a bill that might be progressing and requires some architectural assistance in terms of writing letters to your local legislators in support or against, depending on how it might impact the profession of architecture in the state. And certainly we have behind the scenes as well many excellent people working in finance and communications. We have a new director of design and practice, Amanda Green, who is also on her path to becoming a licensed architect. So it's wonderful to be able to have someone in the architectural profession on staff at the council and providing that additional perspective. And then Yanni Kazanis, senior director, new to the council, taking over Nikki's prior position when Nikki was elevated to executive vice president. So he's getting up to speed on all the programs and supporting the council very strongly as we move forward. Lauren and Debbie, administrative assistants behind the scenes, same with Marjoris and then others on screen. So if you see any of these folks at events, please do say hi and thank them for all their wonderful work helping to get everything done for us. So here's an overview of the committees that are tied to a lot of the California Council efforts. As many of you know, if you're active in your local, state, or national level, a lot of the work the AIA does is driven by volunteer members that take part in committee efforts. And so you can see here, Residential Awards Committee, Council Awards Committee under Communications and Public Affairs, Academy for Emerging Professionals is a very strong group for California Council. In fact, a model of emerging professional leadership that others around the country like to emulate and follow because it's such an inspiration to them, and very successful model as well. Government Affairs, there's a COAT Legislative Review Committee, there's Advocacy Advisory Committee. Component executives also have a committee support group to keep the component executives and leaders on the administrative side connected around the state. We have Monterey Design Conference, Housing Congress, Educational Task Forces, Procurement Task Force, some financial committees. And so this is kind of a snapshot of some of the finer grains of workings at the council. And I would say if anyone's interested, there's a certain topic that you're passionate about and would be interested in joining a committee in the future, don't be shy reaching out to Nikki, Ben, or I, let us know, and we'll see if we can get you on board. And so here is just a snapshot of some of the data that the California Council collects each year and publishes in a dashboard. Hopefully you've seen it sent out by email or posted on the website or distributed through social media. And it just kind of shows a snapshot of the profession around the state, the different number of bills that came out last year, the number that we supported or that we sponsored, for example, the demographics in terms of how many of our members are men, how many are women, how many didn't want to claim one or the other, the different size of firms. You can see 63% of firms in California are less than 5 people. That's pretty common for the professional structure of firms around the country. And it's just very interesting to know that a large number of our members in our workforce is really focused in the smaller firms, and we need to be very strong about how we support small firms and firms of all sizes through our work in the AIA. And so some ways to keep connected beyond these types of webinars would be connecting with California Council on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and then of course on our website. So don't be shy. And with that, I will hand it over to Nikki to speak with us more about the strategic initiatives. Oh, we can't hear you.
Great, thanks, Britt. Welcome everyone, and thank you also for spending part of your day with us. You know, one of the things that in preparing to ascend to this new position is I did a lot of research. I talked to a lot of people, and I really listened to what was happening both in the profession and throughout our state. And, you know, I think as anyone knows, you know, we're living in a time of great disruption. You know, we're highly polarized across the country, and California is very proud of its position as resisting some of the federal initiatives. Politically, California is blue, blue, blue. You know, this time of great cultural upheaval is also demonstrated over at the Capitol. And, you know, we're really fortunate that we have Mark Christian and our contract lobbyist, Mike Belote, looking out for us because there are things facing the profession every day that they're able to head off at the pass, engage our members in advocacy, advisory, and on other committees to really help us be positioned well. You know, a few of the things that I want to talk about today is looking at the council in a much more holistic way. You know, I think we have some opportunities as we move forward to engage members, looking at ways that we can energize people, not to because it's a responsibility, but to energize them around a particular issue and join a movement. We need to really start talking about how the built environment impacts people's lives. We get very focused on the practice of architecture and how do we help firms and members be prosperous, and how do we stop bad things from happening. But we also need to look at, you know, the wonderful opportunities architects have in a larger conversation about shaping the built environment. And one of the broader themes that I'm really excited about is how do we energize the membership to move the profession forward in the next 5 years. The second big theme is prioritizing the work and focusing on our mission and inviting others to join us. And so again, you know, we've got a great legacy of building coalitions when we need them. We're connected here in Sacramento on your behalf, but we also need to look for opportunities to reach out to non-traditional partners. We were just having a great conversation last week about housing and looking at people who are dealing with this, you know, crisis issue in California. Aren't some of our traditional partners. So finding ways to work with them, to build coalitions so that collectively we can move together. And, you know, one of the things that I've learned over my 19 years in working with architects is, you know, you guys are tremendous team builders in helping people come together and reach consensus. And I think that's a great opportunity for the council, is how do we pull together different entities, building these coalitions and having the conversation. And then the last issue is how do we operationalize this vision, putting resources where they can do the most good and empower members to become ambassadors. There is a big movement across the nation to have advocacy not be, you know, our lobbyists in Sacramento, but have architects, every one of you, be advocates in your local communities. We want to continue that movement. We have a leadership institute that Ben's going to be talking about a little later in this presentation. But how do we give members the skills and opportunities to become leaders in their local areas? How do we focus on high-value programs, things that have a real bang for the buck, things that are tangible, and you can see the real return on your investment for your dues dollar? And then finally, you know, we're also living in an age of tremendous influx of data. Everything we do as individuals is monitored in some way, and the buildings that you design are becoming more and more sophisticated. How do we take that same model and overlay it onto the council so that we're making decisions that are looking at some solid information and some really data-driven decisions that will, again, position us for the future. So.
Great.
Okay. Okay, so Ben, I think, is going to now talk to you about some of the activities in our strategic initiatives and activities that are happening in 2018.
Thank you, Nikki. Let me see if I can get the slides going. All right, great. So these are the three AIACC strategic initiatives. And these are not only the goals of the council, but it's also the framework for all the AIA California Council programming. And they're affectionately known as resources, influence, and the future. So I'm going to talk through kind of what we're doing now with them and kind of the vision behind that. And first, we're going to start with resources and sharing knowledge. And it's AIACC's goal to be the authoritative source and recognized knowledge leader for the profession in the practice of architecture in California. And we want to assist the profession by providing tools and resources and best practices to further enhance and provide value to every member in California. In addition, we want to increase awareness about the value of AIA in California. And we share information about the industry and its transformation, about sustainability issues, and other miscellaneous opportunities for architects. Some of the things that we're doing this year is expanding the Housing Congress. Nikki mentioned it a little while ago. We're also continuing a really successful program called the Healthcare Facilities Forum. We're partnering with stakeholders to develop more focused approaches to information and resources related to energy and water issues. And we recently published 2 tools that you may or may not know about yet. And one is the Zero Net Energy Primer and then the Water Resource Guide. And those are both helping the profession to meet the Zero Net Energy 2020 and 2030 goals. The next strategic initiative to advance the future it's our goal to prepare architects and not yet licensed architects and students to meet the ever-changing marketplace and the challenges of the environment. We want to expand the conversation regarding project delivery and applying collaborative principles and identifying emerging technologies. And there are a lot of big issues that we're dealing with right now in the profession, specifically housing and resiliency. We want to prepare the members in California to be the leaders of this discussion in our communities and in the country. And finally, we want to improve on the licensure experience for candidates in California. So some of the things that we're doing right now, the Academy for Emerging Professionals Council Advisor is a model group of emerging professional leadership committees throughout the country and throughout the industry and the Institute. Licensure support and newly licensed recognition is one of the most successful programs that the AEP has come up with in recent history. And as Nikki mentioned a little while ago, too, the council is hosting the 4th annual Leadership Institute in November in San Francisco. Get it on your calendars. It's a great day-long seminar. It's a hybrid model with national content that's being broadcast from multiple locations simultaneously, and then kind of mixed in with local content. It's a great event. If you can make it, we strongly recommend it. In addition, we're following the trends and practice models and technology and sustainability to keep members informed. We're surveying firms and emerging professionals to get better ideas of expectations and what their needs are. And we meet with the California Architects Board and NCARB on a regular basis to advocate on behalf of those that are on the path to licensure. The last strategic initiative is to expand our influence. And we want to promote the AIA as the credible voice for design in the built environment. And we do this by participating in public deliberation about issues impacting design and construction. We advocate for the value of design in terms of health and social, economic, community issues. We create forums to be a resource for architects in non-traditional practice as well. We want to influence the direction of California's natural and built resources. We want to survey clients to determine expectations of architects and to help bridge gaps and disconnects and expectations. Some of the things that we're doing in 2018 having to do with member engagement. We've developed a series of groups of practitioners to give us advice on various legislative efforts that will impact the profession, from the Urban Design Committee to the Committee on the Environment, and to others who are other experts are coming on codes, and representatives from firms, all different practice types all over the state are participating. And all this information is funneled to the Advocacy Advisory Committee, which then reviews all of these and recommends positions that the AIA California Council Board will take. One example that we've been wrestling with for a few years now is Senate Bill 993, which is sales tax on services. And so this is a reactive stance, and this bill would effectively impose sales tax on most services, including architectural, and it will be heard in committee for the first time this Wednesday. And so the AIA California Council is a member of a very large coalition, around 100 different groups that are opposing this bill. And we've been following it for years, and it's really coming to a head right now. Proactively, we're sponsoring some legislation right now, Senate Bill 920, which is the Limited Liability Partnership Sunset Extension. Currently, the California law allows architectural firms to organize as LLPs, but this law ends at the end of this year, meaning that that authority to operate in an LLP as an architectural company will disappear. So the AIACC is working with a lot of engineering partners who have the same issue to help extend the sunset date. So this bill would extend it extend it 7 more years, and it's passed through the first 2 hearings without a no vote. So we'll continue to follow that. Another couple of issues that we're following that are that we're trying to be nimble and solve kind of really big issues that came out of nowhere. The first is this conflict of interest. So unexpectedly, the Fair Political Practices Commission has opinion that architects and engineers who provide planning and scoping services are not allowed to provide design services on projects that result from planning or scoping that work. They're calling it an illegal conflict of interest. And so that would be if an architecture firm is hired to help write an RFP, they're no longer allowed to participate in actually performing the services that were created by that RFP. And there's a lot of examples now of this happening, and it's unclear as to what would happen if there are firms that are actively performing those services for the RFP and they helped write it, and what that would mean logistically and financially. All of those are tricky issues. So the AIACC is looking at the possibility of pursuing changes to that law to once again allow architects to perform those follow-on contracts. The other is the Department of Industrial Relations registration. So those who perform work on public projects who are responsible for the payment of prevailing wage are supposed to register with the DIR. Sort of makes sense, kind of a no-brainer. And there's a registration and a fee that helps the DIR manage the prevailing wage law. However, there's a new opinion that occurred this year that we found that the DIR is now requiring all who work on public projects to register with them, even if they're not paying prevailing wage. So this has impacted several architectural firms already, and we'll try to get the language into a bill soon to kind of clean up the confusion and correct the issues that have arisen from this, and to only require those who are paying a prevailing wage to have to register with the DIR. Some of the issues I've come up with is firms are having to go back in time and pay restart fees and late fee and all these. It's very complicated and seems a little bit unnecessary. We're also conducting, as I mentioned a moment ago, clients' needs surveys and client roundtables. Those are in the process. There's a procurement task force that's developing an educational campaign for public agencies regarding procurement of architectural services. And we all know that quality design and the construction of public buildings at the state and local level is essential in improving our communities and lowering construction costs and benefiting the life cycle costs of the built environment. And many public agencies are trying to circumvent the California law as it pertains to the qualifications-based selection for public projects. So in response, the AIA California Council has appointed a task force that's using a survey to look at existing marketplace trends and client behavior concerning RFPs and identify the desired features of an acceptable RFP, and as well as the attributes that are problematic. The other is, of course, indemnification. We have another group working on that to educate members on the dangers of signing onerous contracts and advocate with public entities on adopting a more balanced process that will lead to better project outcomes. The last one is just regulatory advocacy. We monitor 16 different regulatory agencies, Mark and Melissa, on behalf of the profession. A couple of other things. We are working on disaster assistance. We actually got quite a lot of coverage from AIA National on our sort of nimble response to the fires last year, and we're working with the Center for Civic Leadership on citizen architects. So we're working with the Department of the State Architect on accessibility issues facing California Office of Emergency Service and coordinating with them on a disaster assistance program. And I'm looking for other ways to protect the profession and position architects to be the thought leaders of this topic and to be more prosperous. And along those lines, we also have a couple new websites. One is the Architect's Voice, which gives each of us the opportunity to weigh in on specific issues. So this is a way sort of in real time to read about the legislation that's being reviewed by the council, and as well as provide your own input. So the AIA California Council takes on over 100 different projects every year, from small to one-day events to multi-month coalitions to awards programs such as Monterey Design Conference, and there's all sorts of activities that are happening all the time. We're super busy, and there's always new things that are coming out of nowhere that we're able to take on. So the point of all this is to say we're doing a lot, and the value that AIA California Council is trying to bring is actually very, very important, and it's important to review all the various programs and services that we're providing, and there's something that we have that can help you to do your job better, and if there's something that you would like to see us do to help make your job better, we're always open to hear. So that's the purpose of the strategic plan, to help the members in California be more effective and more connected to the profession. So thank you. I know there's a lot of words and a lot of slides, so thank you for your time. It's a pleasure to see you all virtually today.
That was great. Thank you for that overview, Ben. As extensive as that was, it's really just a snapshot of, a few things that the California Council does. There are additional things happening in the background, and definitely encourage people to reach out to your local California Council directors, our state directors serving at the national level. If you feel that you want more information on anything that we're doing, don't be shy to reach out and ask. Look around on the website and engage on social media. And in the end, it's really about all of us working together to improve the profession in California, members, volunteer leaders, and staff, and making an impact on the communities around us to really build a better world. I think we all believe, and we engage in the architectural profession because we feel that we can make a difference in the world, and I think the AIA is a big part of helping us do that, in addition to all the projects that we work on. So it just requires everyone working together, getting involved, and we really do make a big difference. And so I definitely encourage anyone on the call to attend events locally, reach out to members if you're interested in getting on a committee, and don't be shy. So I think we've reached the point in the program where we are opening up to questions and answers from folks on the call. And if you raise your hand, we can unmute you. I'm not quite sure how the raising of the hand occurs. That used to be something we could do on GoToMeeting, but I'm not sure how that occurs on the Zoom platform. So I think I'll start just by reading the questions that have come in on the chat box. So the first one came in from Yolanda Lettieri, past Vice President of Professional Practice. So hello, Yolanda. How does one get involved in the Housing Congress, or is that for board members only? So that is not just for board members. That is open to any member in California. The Housing Congress is probably about a group of 10 or 15 individuals whose area of work focuses on different aspects of housing throughout the state: multifamily housing, affordable housing, single family, and how we can work together to improve solutions for the housing crisis in our state. And so the way to get involved, as with many things, is to raise your hand and tap Nikki, Ben, or I on the shoulder and let us know that you're interested in joining the Housing Congress, and then we'll see if there's availability to help get you on board and make that happen. The Congress meets, I think, twice a year now. Last year it met once, but we're trying to increase the number of times that they meet in person. And then we're also increasing the number of ways that they can communicate virtually together in between the in-person meetings. So we'll be setting up a bi-monthly call with the Housing Congress to really create an action plan for moving architects forward and leading solutions to the housing crisis. So Yolanda, definitely thank you for raising your hand, and we'll loop you into that discussion. So next we have from Jasmine thanking us for an overview of the AIA. So thank you, Jasmine, for calling in. And then are there any other questions from others on the call? Raise your hand or type in the chat and we're happy to address them. So I might.
So Britt, there is one more question. Why must AIA National take so much of the dues when they're least accountable to members? So we do have two of our regional representatives to the AIA Strategic Council, Rick Abramson and Phil Bona, with us today. And I'm sure it's going to take a second for us to unmute them. But in the meantime, I would like to just jump in. You know, one of the things that I think the AIA's real strengths are is, you know, harnessing the collective power of architects across the nation. California is really seen across the country as a leader. And I know sometimes it seems really difficult to understand what they're doing back in DC, you know, far away, and is it relevant to what we're doing in California? We also have, you know, we're very fortunate because we're a large organization ourselves, and you know, sometimes we're feeling like we can tackle a lot of issues out here on our own, and maybe don't need a national organization. But I think the strength of being part of this group across the country gives us some real diversity of ideas. It provides some really you know, tremendous things that none of us could do alone, from contract documents to federal advocacy to some of the great you know, kind of larger conversations about design excellence that are really important. You know, I know, having you know, been here now for quite a while, our local components are the sometimes the best and most direct link for members to the AIA, and at the council we do a tremendous amount to support the local components, from, you know, revenue sharing to programs in a box to you know, local advocacy initiatives that we help get behind. And so you know, again, I understand those concerns in being part of a three-level organization, and not to put Rick and Phil on the spot, but I'm sure that they can fill you in on some of the, you know, the great things that are happening at the national level as well.
Well, thanks, Nikki. Yeah, this is Rick. I think you touched on it very well, that I've been a member for 30 years, and I would say that, in all honesty, I've never seen such an effective way of distributing efforts than what has happened in the last couple of years through the repositioning efforts. And I think what we're seeing is national advocacy getting very focused to those things that really affect the profession as a whole, the built environment as a whole, or architects nationwide. But apart from that, we're also seeing effectiveness at the state level in our advocacy. There's been 2 bills that have been sponsored by architects and AIACC over the last few years that have been signed by the governor. And there's been some really effective opening of doors at the state level. And then at the local level, what I'm seeing is a greater focus on strategic plans and how individual components can take on particular aspects and challenges of the membership and be more nimble and effective. So even though the dues are separated, I really think as that 3-level organization, it's operating at a very high level right now. I hope that addressed the question.
Thank you, Rick. Phil, were you on the line, and were you interested in chiming in as well? If not, I'll just close out and also reinforce, I think, the AIA, even though it is structured as a 3-tier organization, when people join the AIA, it's, you know, we join the AIA as one. one organization, and we each obtain benefits from every level. But in the end, we join one AIA as an overarching organization in support of many different aspects of the profession. And so amount of dues that goes to a national or a state or local, in the end, it all comes together in larger support of all that we do in terms of setting up events that we'll attend or continuing education opportunities, many different aspects of what is done out there to support the profession. So there is another question here. No doubt the state and local are delivering value. The question is that, question or concern is national will cause the tipping point of loss of membership, for example, $1,000 dues. Do we see this as imminent? I don't know that that is imminent. I believe that there's a strong understanding out there that we can't increase the dues amount forever. Certainly there is going to be a tipping point. What that tipping point is will be tied to the economy. Some things that people mention to me, if there's a feeling that dues are too high, oftentimes it's tied to, well, the cost of a monthly cell phone bill or the cost to buy coffee at Starbucks every day. It's a perception of value and not necessarily the cost of the number itself. And so for people that are involved in the organization and having their voice heard, serving on committees, attending events, we tend not to get that question regarding the dues amount as often as those that may not have the ability to be as engaged. I've also heard it described as an AIA membership is like a gym membership. You'll get the most value out of it by participating and actively making use of it. And so there's many different approaches. I know that at the state level, we've not increased dues in a while because we are sensitive to the fact that we don't want to keep increasing dues exponentially all the time. And a lot of local and national conversations are happening in relation to that as well. So I don't see that as imminent. And Nikki, I don't know if you would like to weigh in on that particular question as well.
I think you've done a great job. I know Phil has his hand raised as well.
Okay, great. Phil, would you like to make some comments? Phil Bono, one of our strategic counselors, representative from California to the National AIA Strategic Council, if we're able to unmute. Hopefully he'll be able to share some comments with us. And in the meantime, if others have questions that you'd also like to ask, please type them in the Q&A box or type them in the webinar chat and we can address them. If not, I've got a few more topics that I'm happy to share with folks as we're trying to get Phil unmuted and able to speak in with us. Certainly, I'm sure there's awareness in terms of the recent harassment allegations occurring against prominent practitioners in the field. And so California Council Executive Committee and Board have discussed our support for AIA National's response in terms of those allegations and the letters that AIA National has posted against harassment in the workplace, which is certainly unacceptable in any conditions. California Council is also working with our Professional Practice Advisory Committee to see how can the council support firms in California just in terms of harassment programs or awareness or potentially an independent HR service that folks would be able to reach out to when engaged in an unacceptable behavior such as that. So we are working on that issue and understand that it's a very important issue. And I just wanted to give that brief update on this call as well. Still able to join? or Phil, if you'd like to type in comments in the web chat, we could listen to your points that way as well. Another topic that we could discuss. So every year at the national conference, there's a convention portion, which is a national business meeting where the national candidates up for election of AIA national office give speeches, and then every delegate from around the country will vote for candidates and resolutions. And so this year, I think there's been 7 resolutions that have been put forward by different components or groups around the country. Is that right, or is it 5? Somewhere between 5 and 7. They just came out, so I need a little more review. But California has put forward 2 resolutions that will be voted on at the national conference. One relates to simplifying the naming of allied members. And right now, it's a very long name that they have to use. They can't fit it on business cards. It's very hard for our professional affiliate supporters, particularly at the local chapter level, to put on their business cards that they are an allied member in support of architects and the AIA in our built environment profession. So we're looking to just have the terminology reduced to allied member, AIA, and then the name of the chapter, which seems pretty straightforward. So that's one resolution that we've put out there that will be voted on at the conference. Another resolution relates to emerging professionals and asking the AIA National to study the issues facing emerging professionals that are transitioning from school to practice in firms on their path to licensure, and then as recently licensed architects in the field, and find ways to better support emerging professional members of the AIA and provide tools to local chapters to assist the chapters in recruiting and retaining emerging professionals in the organization early on, as emerging professionals are the future of the profession and the organization. So it's crucial that the AIA is able to reach out to them and inspire them to be successful practitioners in the field and also successful members of the organization, so that we both can thrive in the future moving forward together. So California has put together a resolution in relation to that will be voted on at the national conference. Additionally, there's an RFP that went out that many folks may have seen. The California Council office in Sacramento, its lease is up at the end of this year, so we'll be looking to redo a new office. And so there's an RFP out for architectural services where anyone is welcome to respond and potentially become the architecture firm hosting the design and overseeing construction administration for that new space that we're all extremely excited about. Let's see, is there another question that came in?
No, I think you're caught up.
Okay. Great.
Phil did write in on the chat just to respond on the other issue. National AIA offers programs at the Conference on Architecture in New York, Grassroots, SGN, which is the state government network, advocacy events, continuing education, updating of contracts, and construction leaders. And it tries to bring local issues to share at the national, who disseminates to the 230 plus components around the country. So it is responding to the value that AIA is providing, national AIA is providing.
Great. And so this year I've been doing monthly write-ups on the California Council website, and the posting from this month related to research in the profession and certain metrics and data that firms are beginning to gather in terms of the value of design. One of the links provided at the end of that article linked to the Strategic Council 2017 Journal of Work, which I encourage everyone to read through. It's a wonderful overview of many of the programs the Strategic Council has been doing a deep dive on at the national level, thinking about the profession in 5 years or 10 years, and where would that be, and what does that mean in terms of practice and the tools that can benefit the profession. So that speaks a lot to many of the things that are happening at the national level as well, and is an excellent summary for folks to read through on a plane or in your spare time when you're curious about what the Strategic Council is up to. One thing that's very interesting from that work, since we have Rick Abramson on the call, is the Architectural Quality Index work that has been going on. In a snapshot is a discussion the Strategic Council is having, and Rick will be able to describe it much better than I will, but that in the public realm right now, the way that people describe houses is more in relation to number of bedrooms and, amenities and square feet and that sort of thing. It doesn't talk about the quality of the design and is it an inspiring place? Is it walkable? Is it near transit? All of those things. So there's an effort at the Strategic Council to expand the way that the public understands and sees housing, for example, not only as a number of bedrooms, but also in terms of the design quality and the sustainability and the livability of the space. And so they're developing a proposal to look into creating something called the Architectural Quality Index, which just sounds very exciting. Rick, would you maybe want to speak to that for a few minutes if you're still with us?
Britt, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm back. I've been unmuted.
No worries.
Well, yeah, I think you touched on it very well. Throughout my career as an architect, I've heard the same refrain that if we can just explain to the public why design matters, we would really have something. And so the Strategic Council has taken up this question of how do we explain to the public why design matters. And I think the initial focus is going to be in the residential world. And as Britt mentioned, the current metrics for renting or selling residential spaces are really antiquated and in many respects not useful. As we all know as architects, 1,000 square foot space that is well designed and functioning is completely different value than something that's not very thoughtful, and yet when it's listed, it's always listed in terms of square footage or bedrooms and bathrooms. So what this quality index is going to be looking at are the architecturally specific aspects of design where architects make a difference and bring value to especially residential living. So it's going to be looking at the quality of daylighting, the thermal comfort of the space, the types of materials, and the extent to which they're renewable or recycled or good for the environment in some way. And this index will be a tool that architects can provide a metric to particularly new residential designs going forward to better communicate why one particular solution might have greater value because an architect was involved. And we think this could be really impactful and change the conversation, the way the public sees architects in residential design. And up until now, statistics I hear vary, but well over 90% of residential design, especially lower scale, lower density, is not designed by architects. And I think our focus is to sort of look at that situation and see if we can reposition architects in a much more influential role through the design value they bring by providing a metric. And also to assuage fears, it is not going to deal with style, character, or aesthetics in any way. It is going to be more focused on content and performance aspects of why space might be healthier to live in and more sensitive to the environment and responsive to the environment. So thanks, Britt.
Very exciting. Thank you, Rick. That's great. And I could see that expanding from, beginning in residential to really any type of construction project out there.
Yes, that's the hope.
Right. Yes. Excellent. Are there any last questions that people would like to bring up on the call? Hearing none, I think we're pretty close to being able to adjourn.
Hey, Britt.
Go ahead, Ben. Yes.
So Rona Rothenberg, who's a board member from San Francisco, wanted to point out clarification. So the current stage that we're in on the AIACC office space is in the RFQ phase, not RFP.
Sorry. Yes, I apologize. Thank you, Rona, for the clarification. So we, after this phase, we will be holding, we will be shortlisting firms and then interviewing and then making a decision from there. But we're certainly very excited about what the new office space for the California Council staff could be. They've been in that current space for a while, and if anyone has had the opportunity to visit, it's a little, let's see, you know, it's not as collaborative and open office environment as many of us are used to and benefit from these days. So we look forward to that work this year. Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I hope this was helpful. And if anyone would like to send feedback on improving these types of meetings in the future, please do send an email to us and let us know if this was helpful and how it could be improved next time. And thank you for joining, and we'll adjourn for today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Everybody.